Hello, welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is David James, and during this segment, we're going to go over some of the races that are happening here in the primaries, as here at Wicomico, there's some really close races going on and some very important races going on. The ones that we cover, again, there's many of them that are going on as we get towards the general, but these are the ones that are pending turnout during the primaries, as there are actually some races that will be determined during the primaries as there's not an opposition from the other party later on. We're going to turn our attention first to District 1 County Council seat. The District 1 County Council seat is going to be between the now Councilwoman Shani Shields and Miss Bernadette Kennedy. We have had both of them on our show here, and when we had them on our show, we had actually an opportunity to have both of them come on at the same time. We had an opportunity to hear both of their points of view, and it's been really interesting to see where both of the young ladies stand. As Mrs. Kennedy, this is going to be her very first time actually being in a political role or going through the actual voting process, as she's taking on someone who's been in it. I mean, man, Councilwoman Shields has been in it. She said that she actually got involved politically back when Walter Mondale was running. So for all of you historians out there, you know how many years ago that has been. But one thing about with Mrs. Kennedy, who is actually a retiree from the library, she's not someone who does not know what's going on, and she's been working very hard in the San Domingo area and working with communities, and she stands on several different committees and boards, and both of the young ladies had a plethora of information. But again, in every situation that we have going on, there has to be a winner in the situation. Looking at both sides of it, again, we have to weigh in the fact of the experience of Shani versus the new fresh breath of Mrs. Kennedy, who has, again, not been in the muck of everything, but is in it right now to be a part of the difference and has nothing to hold back during the process. Now, as we look at the District 1 County Council seat, and based off of that information that we were just talking about, it still looks like Mrs. Kennedy, and again, this is not something that's solidified, etched in stone. These are actually Bridging the Gap's predictions, but it looks like Mrs. Kennedy may actually win this election. And based on our information and the interviews and the things that we've gathered, it looks like it could be a 78 to 22% win for Mrs. Kennedy in District 1. Again, this is all based off of what we have gathered and is our opinion. This is not solidified, and hopefully we're not being offensive. Again, it's not is our pick or not. It's just a pick based off the information. So again, that would be District 1. Our prediction would be Mrs. Kennedy with 78% of the vote going her direction. And again, they're both Democrats, so this is not based off of the Republican vote, but it looked like 78% of the voters in District 1 will go towards Mrs. Kennedy, making her the new councilwoman for that district. The next one we're going to look at is in District 2. And again, if it seems like we're skipping around different districts, there are actual districts that the decision won't be made during the primary on whether or not who's going to be in the general. There's only one Republican or one Democrat, or actually in District 7, you got one Democrat, one Republican, and one independent. So there is no runoff. So the ones that we're going to cover are those that have a runoff. So with that in mind, the next one would be in the District 2 here in Wicomico County for the county council seat, and that would be between the now councilman James Wynn, who originally was actually elected as the at-large, which no longer exists, with having two now minority districts. Now James Wynn is now running for District 2 where he lives at, and he'll be running against another young man, Patrick Atkins. Now, again, Patrick Atkins has been on Central Committee for the Republican Party, and he's been on other different things, but as far as being elected to a public office, he has not yet. James is actually incumbent, and again, before this, he had never been elected, but he has 4 years in, and he's done several things. Those on the west side may know him as working to fight for the water minister, get some things along with Captain Joe. They got some legislation actually sent off to Annapolis. Again, Patrick Atkins, he's known in his community. He's a local businessman, and it's going to be interesting. But James, in order for us to come up to our decision, we had to do it based off of interviews that we've done, which we haven't been able to do with Mr. Atkins. We had to do it based off of information and forums. And again, we haven't heard much from Mr. Atkins, but James Wynn has been at town halls on the west side. He's actually elected, so we do hear him at the council meetings, and he's just been out there a lot. So our prediction for that race, and that, again, they're both Republicans, but in District 2, our thought is that it's going to go 80-20 towards Councilman James Wynn. Again, we have him picked to be the favorite. With 80% of the Republican vote possibly going in his direction by 20%. And again, maybe more, maybe less for Mr. Atkins, but I'm pretty sure that Councilman James Wynn will remain as possibly the only remaining council person, as many of those that are on council are not running. And we actually have Councilwoman Shields picked as not winning this time. So it looks like, as far as our prediction, Councilman Wynn will be winning that district and going on against his opponent in the primaries, in the general, which would be Jim Atkins. So again, for District 2, that would be 80% of the votes going in the direction of James Wynn and 20% going in the direction of Mr. Atkins or Patrick Atkins. It's unique in that district because you have a Atkins that is a Republican running, and you also have one that's a Democrat. Well, they're going to be definitely an Atkins in the general, but I don't think there's going to be two up to that point. So I do think that Councilman Wynn will go on to the general. The next one we're going to look at is going to be District 4. Now, in District 4, we actually had an opportunity to sit down with Aaron Guy, which that's Ron Guy, the guy of the two Aarons here. But his opponent also name is Aaron, but it's Aaron with an E, which is the female Aaron. We've had an opportunity to sit down with Aaron Guy, but have not had an opportunity to sit down with Mrs. Patterson, and we actually had an opportunity to just read a little brief paragraph, which we will post here, that she had on her campaign page that basically let us know that she's not going to be doing any AI flyers, and she's not going to be doing a lot of advertising, really, as we are looking at the election. The primaries upon us right now. But anyway, Aaron Guy has gotten out. He is known around. He works for Pohanka, and he's known as working in the greater Salisbury, and he's very active. He's a girl dad. He had an opportunity to sit down with us, and he was very open, very, very candid about his life and his ambitions. Again, knowledge is power. That's the most important thing here on Bridging the Gap, is to make sure that knowledge gets out. So I have to thumbs up Aaron Guy for actually coming out and speaking, and our stats on that, based on that, for Aaron Guy, we have 85% of, they're both Democrats, by the way, but we have 85% of the votes in that district possibly going towards Aaron Guy, and that's, again, the Guy of the Aaron. It's kind of unique, his last name is Guy, but the male Aaron, we have 85% possible of those votes going in his direction, while 15%, and that may be heavy, going in the direction of Mrs. Patterson. I do believe that Mrs. Patterson does know people in her district. I do believe that she's going to have votes, but I do believe that Mr. Guy, or Aaron Guy, has been out there, and I haven't seen one of her signs. And we do know that signs do not win elections, but it is definitely helpful when you have them out there. I have seen Mr. Guy signs not only in yards of actual houses, but actually in businesses, which is a really big gamble for businesses to actually get politically involved. But I have seen businesses with his signs out front. So again, that's 85% towards Aaron Guy, which is the male Aaron, and his opponent, Aaron Patterson, 15%. All right. So then going on, we have in District 5, which is going to be the closest race as far as it goes with the council, as far as in my opinion, okay? And that race is, as far as for the primary, is going to be between two Republicans, one being the mayor of Delmar. The mayor of Delmar is Mayor Ben Jordan. We here at Bridging the Gap have had an opportunity to sit down with Mayor Jordan several different times and sat down with the commissioners of Delmar, and he's definitely easy to talk to. He's a very jovial person. Ben's a good guy. He's, again, during this campaign, he has had some loss in his family that has kind of sidelined him as far as getting out, but he has been definitely still getting out and knocking doors. His opponent, Mr. White, Joe White, he's been definitely on our show as well, and he's definitely everywhere. He seems to be at the forums. I've seen him at early voting. He seems to be everywhere. He also has a show here on PAC 14. So both of them have been getting out a lot. When we did our little prediction, it was hard to pick a winner, so we didn't. We're saying 49% for both. 49% for Mayor Ben Jordan, 49% for Joe White, with 2% that can sway either direction, which is going to be the difference maker on whether or not whichever one carries on. So as it stands here with Bridging the Gap, we could not, we don't feel comfortable picking or saying our prediction as a winner, because both of these young men have, first of all, have people who are definitely going to vote for him, and also with Mayor Jordan already being elected a couple of times, he has experience as being elected to a political stand. But again, Mr. White has been politically involved for at least, as far as I know, the last 3 years, maybe more than that. Okay, so that would be for council. The other one or actually I have two other ones that I want to talk about that are happening, and one of them would be for sheriff. Now, that one for sheriff in the primary, which personally, if you ask my opinion, I don't think that there should be I don't think that a sheriff race should be partisan. I truly believe that it should be based off of law enforcement and not a political party. But it is, which means Mrs. Foley, Lana Foley, who's running on the Democratic ticket, well, she'll be facing off against one of the two that are running on the Republican ticket. Those two would be the incumbent sheriff, who's been the sheriff here in Wicomico for the last 20 years, Sheriff Mike Lewis. Sheriff Lewis, we've had on our show. We saw him at a forum. We've talked to him out. He's very easy to talk to Sheriff Lewis. He's never been lost for words. But we have an opportunity to sit down with him many different times, and I think it's been some really good sit-down conversations. I think he's been very open about his thoughts about what he has done and what he's planning to do. His opponent is the Fraternal Order of Police president, and I also say also a fellow devil dog, a Marine as I am, Scott Hamilton. Scott has been, he's been terrific throughout this campaign. I give kudos to both of them for not making this a dirty race, but both of them have been out in the public. They're both very knowledgeable about law enforcement. I remember just a few weeks back on one of our Bridging the Gap segments, City Talk, actually, we had Michael Langford, who commented and said that Mike Lewis is definitely a person of what the older generation want in law enforcement, but he gave kudos to Scott Hamilton as being the future of law enforcement, and I definitely agree with that. Again, I like both of them, I really do, and it's a shame you got to pick a winner, but I have to go with what Jermichael Mitchell said while he was on the show. We have to understand, since this is a partisan situation, The older conservatives are going to go with what they've been going with for the last 20 years. So I feel like those who, no matter what's happening, no matter what the weather situation is, they're going to vote. The older conservatives are going to vote for their now standing sheriff. And that is, again, that is in no way saying that Scott Hamilton does not have what it takes to be a good sheriff. But I do believe that of those Republican votes, that 65% of that is going to swing in the direction of our now sheriff, Mike Lewis. 65% for Mike Lewis, with 35% being left for Scott Hamilton. And again, even speaking with Sheriff Lewis, who have had a lot of great things to say about Scott Hamilton. He really feels that Scott is a great person. He feels like Scott has definitely what it takes to be a great leader in the future. I would like to see what Scott's going to do. Again, these are just predictions, so next time I come on, I might be congratulating Mr. Hamilton, but according to the predictions we have here at Bridging the Gap, we have Sheriff Lewis picked with a 65% to 35% margin of victory. The last one I want to talk about is, and again, I do know on the governor's race for the Democratic side, our now Governor Wes Moore, he does have a opponent, but Mr. Fedler, I don't think really has much of an opportunity. I really not going to really comment much on that. I do know that we've had the same governor for the last 4 years, and I'll let you make that call on that end of things. But I do want to talk about the other side of it, which has came down. We had an opportunity, we've had the distinct honor of being able to sit down with two of the three candidates for governor on the Republican ticket. We had an opportunity to sit down with John Myrick, who sat down with Tyler Jones, and it was a great interview. I've actually had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Myrick twice, as I actually had him come in as when I was the president of the Delmarva Conservative Movement. I had him come in as a speaker. So we had him speak twice, and again, both times, I was very impressed with what he had to say. And we also had Dan Cox. Now, again, Dan Cox, who was Delegate Dan Cox 4 years ago, who was the one that ran against Wes Moore, who I got to admit, back then I was more on the minister side, where I came in and I prayed over his rally he had here in Wicomico, and I had an opportunity to be there for a couple of his door knocking situations. But I was really impressed with him and his Christian values, his family values. I was very impressed with a lot of things with him, and I really thought it was a shame that at a time the Republican Party here locally wasn't working together enough to stand or get behind him. And I really probably think it wasn't just in Wicomico. I think it was Maryland-wide, and he lost by a really big margin against Wes Moore. So, but again, I have to say, even when him coming back and hearing his thoughts and how he feels, I really feel that Mr. Cox spoke very well. Now, at the same time, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with the third person who's running in now on the Republican side, which would be Mr. Ed Hale. And Mr. Hale, actually, I'm hearing that used to be formerly a Democrat, that's now a Republican, and he's getting a lot of ground. So, or he seems to be picking up a lot of momentum in this race. So, my thought here with Bridging the Gap, my thought is that it's going to come down to the wire between Mr. Hale and Dan Cox. And Mr. Myrick is actually going to pick up more votes than what people think he's going to pick up. He's not going to pick up enough to be a significant contender versus the other two, but I do believe that he's going to get at least 12%. Mr. Myrick will get 12% of the Republican vote. And that's, again, Bridging the Gap's prediction. I also have Dan Cox picking up a 43% of the Republican vote. 43% is a good percentage, but it's not enough in my thought and our thought to win here in Wicomico County, as I think that Ed Hale may edge him out and have 45% of the Republican vote behind him. Again, that's going to be 45% of the Republican vote for Ed Hale, which would take him on to face most likely Governor Wes Moore. But I do believe that Dan Cox does have an opportunity to overcome that small margin and actually win this actual win the ticket for the Republican Party to face Westmore in the general election. But again, those are our predictions. I will go back over them real quickly, but those are the Bridging the Gap 2026 primary choices. Again, for District 1, we have Miss Bernadette Kennedy defeating the now Councilwoman Shani Shields with a 78% to 22% win for Miss Bernadette Kennedy. We have Councilman James Wynn in District 2 for the Republican side, overtaking Patrick Atkins and having an 80% of the Republican vote in that district vote for him, and he will go on to face Mr. Jim Atkins in the general. So let's back it up again and say if Mrs. Kennedy does win with a 78% victory, or she wins by any margin of victory, she will be the new councilwoman of that district. We're thinking that she will be the new councilwoman of that district because there is not a Republican contender for the general election. Okay, but for Mr. Wynn, he will, even after defeating Patrick Atkins, he will have Jim Atkins coming up in the general election for District 2 of Wicomico County Council. In District 4, again, we have Aaron Guy, which is the male Aaron, the AARON Aaron Guy, winning that district for the Democratic ticket with a 85% win percentage over Aaron, the female Aaron in that district, running on the Democratic ticket, which will pick up at 15%. The one that's up in the air is District 5 again. So I want to remind y'all, the one in District 5 is going to be really up in the air because of there just seemed to be a gaining ground by Joe White in that district. So right now we have here for Bridging the Gap, we have that as a deadlock tie for District 5 County Council for the Republican ticket. Again, Aaron Sadberry, which is the third Aaron that's actually running. It's a lot of Aarons running in Wicomico County, but Aaron Sadberry would be actually will be going against the winner of the Republican ticket here in District 5. Again, we have both Mayor Ben Jordan of Delmar, the mayor of Delmar, Maryland. We have him at 49% and Joe White at 49%, with 2% out there that could go either way. We just could not give it to either one of them, as again, Ben Jordan is known everywhere, but Joe White, again, he is also a successful businessman. Joe White's name is starting to get out there in the households as well. We jumped back and said, as we were talking about with the sheriff's race, in the sheriff's race, we had here at Bridging the Gap, we had picked our now Sheriff Mike Lewis to win the Republican ticket and defeat Scott Hamilton with a 65 to 35% margin of victory for Sheriff Lewis. And the last but not least, for the Maryland governor race on the Republican ticket, as we're pretty sure that Governor Westmore will win the Democratic ticket. But on the Republican side, we have here with Bridging the Gap, again, this could change, okay? But with Bridging the Gap, we have Ed Hill edging out Dan Cox with 45% of the vote going in his direction, 43% for Dan Cox, with 12% going for John Meyer, who I think has done a champion-like campaign out there. I really think that he's done a great job out there, and none of these, not ne'er person, and that's me being from Nantico using the word ne'er, but not ne'er person that has been running should hang their heads if they lose, because they've all done a great job. So again, those are our picks here at Bridging the Gap. I hope nobody's mad at me, and I do truly hope that all get out and vote, and all will make a difference. Even if that person that you picked did not win, that does not mean that you need to stop voting, because again, come November, we're going to all need to have a part in picking that person that's going to continue on as our next elected leader. Again, this is Bridging the Gap, and I thank you all for listening. Have a great one.